What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, and we have our 2 minute drill for March 3rd, 2021, man. And this is pretty much our recruiting episode of the week, I would say. We got two big commitments that happened. Kind of got distracted with the Eric Gilbert situation yesterday. The whole issue with what's going on in Texas, which is just absolutely disappointing to see as a person who cares, like has any sort of empathy or anything going on in their life. So it was kind of a down episode yesterday. We're back on the recruiting trail. My favorite thing to talk about, man. I love talking recruiting. Y'all know that. Anyone, if you've ever listened to the show, man, you know I will talk recruiting for hours and hours. It's a 2 minute drill, so we got to try to keep it under 15 minutes. We went almost 30 on Monday, so let's go ahead, kick it off here, guys. Big commitment up at Michigan. Five-star Will Johnson gave his pledge to Michigan. And guys, it finally happened. The absolute unthinkable has occurred, and that is Jim Harbaugh keeping elite in-state talent actually in the state for college. I mean, Will Johnson was one of the most highly touted recruits from the 2022 class. Multiple offers from Alabama, Ohio State, Florida, LSU, Notre Dame. Every school in the country just about going after this kid. And it's a huge win for Michigan, who has struggled at best to keep players within the state. And it really hasn't been done since, 2018 with Aiden Hutchinson. Not a great look. I mean, 2021, they lost Damon Payne to Alabama. Everyone loses recruits to Alabama, so that could be okay. You also had 2020 Justin Rogers. You lose him to Kentucky. You are Michigan. You are a blue blood program. You're supposed to be one of the most talented programs in the country, and you have Kentucky stealing number one recruits out of your state, man. And both of these guys were top 100 recruits. I believe Pay was a top 50 recruit. And then in 2019, you lose it to a conference foe in Wisconsin, where they steal a top 15 prospect, Logan Brown, right out of your state. He goes and plays for one of your rivals that you have to play against every year. So big problems there for Michigan, to say the least. And Harbaugh finally seems like he's heard the critics. He's going to make a final push to secure his job, to try to get Michigan back into the forefront of college football. The two biggest scrutinies was he isn't keeping in-state elite Michigan talent. He did that here. He tried last year. He lost Payne, but he did keep, I believe, two of the top five last year. So work in progress. Number two, this year is still uncommitted, even though it looks like Notre Dame's going to make a strong push for the number two player in the state this cycle. And then the other thing is developing high school quarterbacks. I think his last chance is coming up this year in a big five-star they got last cycle. So Harbaugh seems like he's hearing the critics. He's on the road to trying to solve some of this. But let's get to Johnson himself, man. I love this kid. If you need to go check out his huddle tape, 247sports.com, man, go check out Will Johnson's huddle tape, man. He's the number 11 ranked player in the class, the fifth ranked a cornerback in the country. Already mentioned he was the number one player in the state of Michigan. He has elite size, guys. I mean, right now, out of his junior year, he's 6'3", 190. He's got elite length. He's strong for his size. He's filling out his frame very, very well for a young guy. And he's not going to ever be overpowered on the line of scrimmage. He's big, physical, and he's going to do really well against these bigger receivers that just use their physical abilities to get open. You're not going to be able to do that against Johnson. And he's just too long and too strong for you. And I think he's going to be an elite, a really, really good DB day one on campus in Ann Arbor. He's a two-sport athlete, basketball and football, which shows how athletic this kid is. It shows why he excels with his athleticism. It translates well onto the football field in terms of his agility, his side-to-side quickness, everything like that. And And I think that's why he can read the field very well. He has great vision, which also helps him on the basketball court. He translates that to football. The one negative, we don't have a time 40 time, a confirmed 40 time for this kid, but based on his film, the guy has elite game speed. We saw Jerry Rice 4.6 40, not great, but he played so much faster on the field. And I think I would much rather have a guy who has game speed rather than a dude who can just clock on a tracker in a straight line. So game speed is there for Johnson. And his top quality for me, instinctive play and ball skills. The kid understands where he needs to be. He understands how to run every coverage in the book, multiple zone coverages. He knows how to run man coverage. It allows him to be at the right place at the right time on almost every play. Of course, he's young, he's going to make mistakes, but once this kid gets into his second, third year at Michigan, if that's where he ends up staying, this kid's going to be a first round NFL talent. I think even a top 10 potential pick here in Will Johnson. His pro comp, according to 247, which I love this comp for this kid. And I know it's going to sound pretty far out there, but Stephon Gilmore as this kid's pro comp. It shows how high his ceiling is. It shows his elite potential. And I think this is team changing type commitment where it gives you an elite shutdown corner immediately in terms of that defense. And Harbaugh loves to have a dominating defense, and this kid's exactly what they need on the boundary there. And he's athletic enough to play multiple positions in the back end, depending on what is needed by the Wolverines. As a grade, I'm giving this an A plus. I mean, anytime you land a top 11 talent, a guy whose comparison is Stephon Gilmore, been one of the best DBs in the NFL, that's an A plus for me. It's an immediate need for them, and it's going to make them immediately better. So I'm going to give this an A plus. And in terms of a big storyline, we were supposed to cover it Monday, but we got backed up with storylines, had to cover a bunch of them. I tweeted about this on Friday. 5-star Todd Simpson, quarterback, commits to Alabama. And, everyone loves the story of Robin Hood, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. But Robin Hood, kind of MIA here. Where's Robin Hood when you need him? The rich in college football just seem to be getting richer by the year, especially in these recruiting cycles where they are just landing elite recruits year after year, cycle after cycle, and they can dominate the transfer portal, which doesn't help either. They can get immediate contributors. Bama's in the running for Henry Toto out of Tennessee, would be just a nasty replacement for their linebacking core up there in Tuscaloosa. And they land another 5-star QB, which follows their most recent 5-star QB in Bryce Young. 2 years ago, they got Jalen Milroe last recruiting class. Tua was a 5-star. I mean, the run of quarterbacks Alabama's had, which we're going to break down a little bit later, is just astonishing. This time he hails out of Tennessee. Yes, it's right above Alabama, but they've been landing these quarterbacks from all across the country, and it just adds Tennessee to that list of states where Alabama can land elite prospects out of any state in the country. And it's just another further example that they don't need to recruit Alabama, Georgia, just Florida. They can recruit in California with Bryce Young, Tennessee with Todd Simpson, Texas with Jalen Milroe. It doesn't matter. If Bama wants a player, they're going to go and get them. We just talked about earlier in the show, they landed the number 1 recruit out of the state of Michigan last cycle. So just another example, man. But it's another huge win for the Crimson Tide. They beat out schools like Clemson, LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss. These are all schools they're going to be competing with year in and year out. Clemson on the national level, the other schools within the division and the conference. Well, if I'm Todd Simpson, why not join the Saban factory, man? He is turning out elite prospects. He turned Mac Jones into a potential first-round draft pick after there were people saying Mac Jones wouldn't ever start for Alabama. The Tua injury opened a door. People said that he should be benched for Bryce Young. I told y'all it wasn't going to happen. It didn't. And you saw what he made out of his year. He's now a national champion as a starting quarterback. In terms of Simpson, man, the number 27 prospect in the class, the number 3 pro-style quarterback, and the number 2 player in the state of Tennessee. He has the athleticism to make plays outside the pocket when it's needed. And the big thing is, though, he excels at making accurate throws at all levels of the field. It really should thrive behind the talented offensive line that he's going to play behind. We talked with Josh Pate about that elite offensive line class Alabama just had. They're probably going to be the ones blocking for Simpson, which is going to give him probably the Joe Moore Award winning offensive line by the time he starts. And he's just a prototypical Alabama guy, man. Looking at his film, looking at his stats, his physical traits, and everything, he is just a prototypical Nick Saban Alabama quarterback. He doesn't have elite arm strength, but he's going to make up for it with accuracy, high IQ, and decision making. He only had about 1,800 passing yards last year, 20 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing, but only 4 turnovers, only 4 INTs last year, man. And he's just a commander of an offense, and he looks every bit the part of an Alabama QB. And I know this is going to sound like a cop-out, but he reminds me so much of Mac Jones this year in terms of what his potential could be. He has similar size, similar arm strength, similar athleticism, and very high football IQ, just like Jones had. And I know it seems like a cop-out, but their games really do resemble each other. And if you turn on the film of this kid on Huddle 247, you will see that he does look a lot like Mac Jones, and he really reminds me of Mac Jones as a freshman, sophomore. And, I want to end the show, man. We're approaching 12 minutes here. I want to end this by talking about the evolution of Nick Saban and the Alabama quarterback situation. I want to shout out Josh Pate for 247 for, some of this data here. And I want to take a little bit of different approach as he did, but this is an interesting thing, and I think y'all deserve to hear it in case y'all don't catch the late kick on YouTube. These are the quarterbacks from 2007 to 2015 that were recruited under Saban. The first one is 3-star Nick Fanuzzi. You might not know of him because he never started a game for Alabama. 4-star Star Jackson never started a game for Alabama. Had A.J. McCarron, 4-star, of course, national champion, led some very, very talented Alabama teams to the promised land. Then you had 5-star Phillip Sims, never started a game. 4-star Blake Sims had one amazing year with the Crimson Tide. 3-star Philip Eli, never started. 3-star Alec Morris, never started. 4-star Cooper Bateman started one game, bench for Jalen Hurts. 3-star Parker McLeod, never started. 4-star David Cornwell, never started. 5-star Blake Barnett started one game, also bench for Jalen Hurts. So, this shows how unequipped Nick Saban was at recruiting quarterbacks from 2007 to 15. I mean, his only hits were really A.J. McCarron and Blake Sims during that time. And so you look and you're like, okay, well, how did they have so much success? And you realize that they relied on defense so much. The running game with Mark Ingram and all the backs that TJ Yeldon and all the backs they had, Eddie Lacy coming out of Alabama. But then something changed. Something got in there. I think Saban had a realization that we'll get to in a minute. But listen to some of the quarterbacks he recruited after this time period, 2016 to this year. 4-star Jalen Hurts, now plays for the Eagles, multiple national titles, and was a Heisman finalist. 5-star Tua Tagovailoa, now at the Miami Dolphins, national champion, and a Heisman finalist. 3-star Mac Jones, national champ and Heisman finalist. 3-star Lane Hatcher, never started. 4-star Talia Tagovailoa, never started, but I think we know why there. He kind of was just a complimentary piece to his brother until his brother eventually headed off to the NFL. 4-star Paul Tyson, still on the roster. 5-star Bryce Young, projected starter this year. 4-star Jalen Milroe getting there this spring. And 5-star Todd Simpson, the guy who inspired this segment right here. So this is a huge change. You hear a lot more 5-stars, 4-stars, and guys that were very successful at the highest level of college football, and now have taken that and applied it to the NFL, which is something that you didn't see in that first group I listed. And, you look at Nick Saban, man. He's a defensive savant. He was he was on those New York Giants teams back in the late '80s that were winning Super Bowls. He was on just any Bill Parcells staff. He was on there. He was a successful defensive guy at the Browns. I mean, he was at a lot of places. He did some good things at the Dolphins before he eventually was let go prematurely, coming from a Dolphins fan. But he's built some of the best defenses in college football. We talk about those defenses from like 09 to 2012. Man, those were some of the most talented, well-coached defenses in the country. And I want to address a quote that he said this year at a press conference after one of the games. He said, quote, "It used to be good defenses beat good offense. Good defense does not beat good offense anymore." I'm like, man, but look how far we've come since 09, 2011, Saban, where that wasn't the case. And I did some research, and I wanted to look at Alabama offensive scoring from 2007 to 2015, in which they averaged 34.3 points a game on average throughout those seasons, through those like 9 seasons. Well, these past 5 years, 2016, 2020, they've been averaging almost 44 points a game. We're averaging 10 more points a game for the Crimson Tide than what they were averaging at Nick Saban's first half of his tenure. And you look at some of the offensive coordinators, you had Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, have been priorities for Nick Saban to keep and hire. And he even dips back into the NFL and gets a talented offensive mind in Bill O'Brien now to bring the offense back to Tuscaloosa after Steve Sarkisian took the Texas job. And you look back at the early Saban tenures and you're like, how did you beat Alabama? And as an Auburn fan, that's pretty clear. 1, you get real lucky with a kick six. 2, you have run a spread offense like Ole Miss did. Or 3, you have a mobile quarterback. I'm looking at Johnny Manziel, has success against Alabama. Cam Newton has success against Alabama. Nick Marshall and Deshaun Watson have been 4 of the most talented quarterbacks that have had a lot of success. The only person who really wasn't a true dual threat quarterback to really beat up on Alabama was Trevor Lawrence as a freshman, and we saw that he has a little bit of mobility, but that was more of a Clemson defense absolutely decimating that Alabama offense. And nowadays, you can't just get by with a really good athletic quarterback against Alabama. You're going to have to score 40 to 50 a game to realistically even have a shot. You look at the Auburn game, they score 48 against this Alabama team that was missing a lot of players, including Tua. They escaped by 3, and it took 2 pick sixes, one of them 101 yards to the house in the second half, and a clank field goal for them to pull that one off. You look at Alabama, man, and it's going to take a Herculean effort. You saw what Joe Burrow and them did, Herculean effort, and they almost choked it away at the end and was probably 1 or 2 plays away from losing that game. So Alabama's not going down easily, and then Nick Saban had a realization that he has to get a quarterback that can make plays and make this offense potent. He had to prioritize offensive coordinators, and he had to prioritize wide receivers. There's a wide receiver revolution at Alabama too. They always had a Julio. They always had an Amari Cooper, but it was a one-hit guy in that wide receiving room. Now they're building units. They're 3, 4, 5 wide receivers deep, where if you shut Jalen Waddle down, they could have thrown it to Devontae Smith. Last year they had Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. They had John Mechie this year. They have Billingsley now with the tight end / slot position. And Slade Bolden was a great target. They have built units now at the wide receiver position. So you revolutionize your wide receiving room, you revolutionize your quarterback recruiting, and you finally start prioritizing offensive staff, offensive coordinators. And this is what you get, a deadly combination of absolute college football dominance. And this is why Alabama has become one of the scariest programs in college football these past few years, and this is why they're not slowing down anytime soon. Back to Simpson, though, if I had to give it a grade, giving it a B+. I think he has some decent upside, but really and truly, man, a B+ is an A+ for Alabama because they're going to surround him with the best athletes, the best offensive line, the best coaches, the best staff, the best facilities, the best training staff, the best strength and conditioning, anything you want. He's going to have the support. So Todd Simpson is most likely going to be very successful at Alabama. And I'm excited to see what this kid does. And at this point, man, does anyone listening here have any doubt that Nick Saban could take an average fan from any game he just pointed and chose and not go 9-3? I think we can make an argument that he could even go further than that. And Nick Saban has figured it out. He has shown the ability that other coaches haven't to adapt, to change what he does best in terms of recruiting, in terms of what he prioritizes, and in terms of what he wants to build Alabama into. And this is why Alabama is dominating college football, guys. So we're going to wrap it up here, man. I love talking all about this, man. I could go on for hours and hours, but we already got an episode coming out along with this one today, man. We had an amazing interview with Matt Andrews from Ohio State, so go check that out as well. It's available here on YouTube, so just click over to the next video or go check it out on any of the podcast streaming platforms that you like to listen to and find the Blue Bloods and listen. Make sure you subscribe, of course, and rate the podcast 5 stars if you may. Go ahead, if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, man. It helps us out. Like this video also helps us out. And turn on your post notifications so you can get notified anytime we drop a 2-minute drill, an interview, or a normal episode, man. We appreciate all y'all out there, man. The Blue Bloods family out there is strong, man. We appreciate every single one of y'all for supporting us. And we couldn't do this without you guys. I'll be back tomorrow for the 2-minute drill. We got some transfers and recruiting news that we're going to cover, plus any breaking news that might occur in the next day. But for Zach, but for the Blue Bloods, for everyone, man, I'm out.